Welcome to the 6-part series on analyzing open targets data. In this first video, I'll show you how to start a JupyterLab session with Spark on the DNAnexus platform. Go to the Tools tab and select the tool library. Filter for the tools by selecting the AnyName box and type Jupyter in the search bar. You'll see several JupyterLab options appear. Select JupyterLab with Spark Cluster for this demo. On the Run Setup page, you can change the job name if you like and choose the folder for the output. Then press Next in the bottom right corner. Once on the next screen, go to the instance type and keep the default setting. Mem1 SSD 1v2x16 for this demo, though you can select a different instance type based on your specific case. I'll keep the remaining settings as default. Then click Start Analysis. Now that our Spark cluster is initializing, join me in the next video where I will show you how to download and import the necessary data. Welcome to the second video. Now that our environment is running, I'll show you how to import OpenTarget's data into Spark. Now we're on the JupyterLab homepage. On the left side, go to your project folder and click to open the notebook. First, we download 7 datasets, including credible sets, co-localization, studies, and diseases. Then, we upload them to the Hadoop Distributes file system so Spark workers can access the files. This is necessary because the local data only exists on the driver node, and the workers can't read it directly. Then, we read data from the Hadoop Distributes file system using spark.read.parquet. Here, we load and merge 2 co-localization datasets. Lastly, we read the remaining tables like study, target, disease, and biosample. With the raw data loaded into the system, we are ready for the next step. In the third video, we will extract specific disease signals to focus our analysis. In this third step, our goal is to link autoimmune diseases with functional molecular evidence so we can identify relevant genes and tissues. First, we expand the root EFO term to get all autoimmune diseases. Then, we select all genome-wide association studies mapped to those diseases and extract their credible sets. Next, we search for molecular QTLs that co-localize with these genome-wide association studies' credible sets. Finally, we select a compact table of the key information for downstream interpretation and prioritization. Now that we have a clean, compact table of results, let's move to the fourth video, where I'll show you how to query this dataset for specific genes. Welcome to part 4. In this section, I will demonstrate how to query the final results table for specific genes of interest. First, we search for a single gene like CD28 and check how many autoimmune associations it has and in which diseases it appears most frequently. Then, we do the same for 2 genes, for example, CD28 and CD80, to compare their patterns across different studies and tissues. Finally, we load a list of genes from a file and filter the table to quickly explore all of their autoimmune links in one go. We've examined the data tables, but visualization makes interpretation much easier. In the next video, we will plot these results to understand the direction of disease risk. In this 5th video, we ask the question, do variants that affect CD28 in rheumatoid arthritis tend to increase or decrease disease risk? First, we filter our results to keep only co-localizations, where CD28 is the molecular QTL gene and the disease is rheumatoid arthritis, and we compute the negative log 10 p-values for the QTL signal. Then, we pull out the genome-wide association study effect sizes and plot the distribution of genome-wide association study betas. Because most of these betas are negative, the CD28-associated variants we see here tend to reduce rheumatoid arthritis risk rather than increase it. Now that we've successfully analyzed and visualized the data, join me in the final video where I'll demonstrate how to export your results. In this final step of the series, I'll show you how to export our results from the multi-node Spark cluster. First, we write the output table as a Parquet dataset to HDFS, then copy it down to the local file system so it can be uploaded to the project or opened in a regular notebook. For larger outputs, we also write the same table into the DNAnexus Apollo database. This allows us to simply point Spark to the DNAnexus URL next time and reload the autoimmune credible sets without rerunning the whole analysis. That concludes our workflow. You now know how to set up, analyze, and export OpenTarget's data on DNAnexus. Thank you for watching.